Midwest Whitetail is brought to you by Realtree, Hoyt Archery, Muddy Outdoors, Fuse Accessories, Trophy Rock, Frigid Forage, Scott Archery, Cabela's, Rocket Broadheads, Woods Zero Turn Mowers, Bloodsport Arrows, Redneck Hunting Blinds, Scent Master, Yeti Coolers, Scent Lock, and Nikon.
Welcome to Midwest Whitetail. I've got several short segments, quick. I think they're quick anyway, today on the episode, and we're going to cover first why I'm standing here along this road, which is actually somewhat comical. 30 yards away is a tree stand that I used to hunt a lot, and I'll talk about how I hunted this spot, why I hunted it. It was actually a killer stand, believe it or not, 30 yards off this county road. I don't hunt it anymore for a number of different reasons, but we'll dive into that. But as we go through this episode, we're also going to talk about frost seeding clover. We've got some rain coming in the forecast here the next couple of days, and actually some frost conditions coming back in. So that starts to make sense. I've got some trees that we planted clear back in October of 2007. We haven't pruned them yet, and they're looking a little bit woolly. There's a lot of branches in there, and you get too many branches on an apple tree and it actually works against the productivity of the tree. One of the interns in our office this year is a fellow named Jared Keeson, and he's got a wildlife degree from Stevens Point, Wisconsin. And this is kind of right up his alley, so he's going to take that apple pruning segment for us. And we're going to talk about mowing strut zones for turkey hunting. And Aaron Warbritton, as big of a turkey hunter as he is, he's been out doing some of that, so we're going to tag along with him. There was a deer that I was hunting in 2004 and 2005. In fact, I thought he was still alive in 2005. I hunted him in 2005, but he was actually already dead. It was a giant deer. I was living right in this specific area right here, not more than about, I'd say he was living in 30 to 40 acres. I spent my whole season in 2004 hunting about that, that 30 to 40 acre area. So I had to find creative ways to get to and from tree stands, and I had to find creative stand locations within that really small core. And there's a fair amount of activity right around here. Our house isn't too far away that way. I've got a neighbor not 150 yards up the road here, maybe 200 yards. So believe it or not, this giant deer was living right in kind of this, I call it almost a suburban type environment out here in the country. This was one of the best spots on the whole farm when the wind came out of the north. So it's coming this direction, blowing over the road. It's coming from the timber, it's coming from the valley where that buck was living. I would park up at my neighbor's right in on the edge of his driveway. So I mean, that covered up my coming and going, because you've got the normal human activity around that farm site. I'd walk down this road with the wind blowing this direction out into that cow pasture away from any deer, and then I'd slip down through the ditch and then the little 20 yards or 30 yards or so into that tree stand. Well, the trails that were leading up, the field that you can kind of see in behind me and to my right, that was all planted to beans back then. It was a food plot. And the trails coming out of the valley funneled right into the corner of that food plot. So they were on the opposite side of the plot from the road. And any wind blowing this direction was carrying my scent out towards the road. So it was really bulletproof. I never got caught in that tree stand one time. And I bet I hunted it 20 or 25 times that season. Anytime the wind was from the north or the northeast, that's the tree that I was in. And I actually saw that buck on the 10th of November, I believe, from that stand, and he was just too far away. I couldn't get the shot. So, I mean, lots of deer came past. I ended up shooting some does there and had a lot of encounters with deer. But the whole point is, there's two things to take away. One is being creative and taking advantage of the normal human activity. They didn't expect anything. I could drive right up there on the stillest of mornings and park in my neighbor's driveway and come on down here, and the deer didn't expect anything, they didn't think anything was up, because it matched the human activity that was normal to that area. And then it was bulletproof because my scent blew straight away from any place where the deer would be into an area where the deer never go. This road doesn't get a lot of traffic. I've sat here for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time and not had a single car go by. So it worked out perfect. So keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be the classic deep woods funnel on a creek crossing or whatever for it to pan out for you. This was one of the best spots that I hunted back in 2004. All right, so this is the stand. And when I'm walking in from that direction, when you can see how short of a distance that is from the road, There were no trails up there. All the deer that entered that food plot, which is to my right, were on this little trail that comes up into the corner of it, right here, coming up out of this valley. So it was all, 15 yards and in. There were a few trails further down in the timber back then, but it was, this was the main one that they used coming up into this food plot. The deer never had any idea that I was here, and all the times that I hunted it. And you can get away with hunting a stand over and over and over if it sets up this well. It's pretty rare to find one that really fits all of these types of conditions where you can get in and out without being detected, where there's no way deer can get downwind of you when you're in the stand. So it's kind of fun when you find one like that, and it's even more fun when it's creative and you're 40 yards off the side of a county road. Hopefully I got you thinking on this one. Next we're going to join Jared as he prunes some apple trees.
What we're doing today is we're coming into the stand of apple trees, and we're just pruning out all the new shoots that are growing up in the middle and all the shoots that are growing down at the base of the tree. All them little suckers taking energy. When they grow up and they get bigger, then they're just going to be pulling off all the nutrients from them. If you let them suckers get out of hand for too long, once they grow up they'll just become a problem, and then the tree will start breaking off and busting, and you don't want that to happen.
Well, it's April 10th, and we're in southern Iowa today out on Bill's farm, and I'm actually standing on a ridge that we've had a lot of success hunting turkeys on in the past. The problem with this ridge this year is that a lot of this grass is all grown up. We didn't burn it off this year like we had before. We've got our Cabela's WLM equipment with us with our rotary cutter on the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mow some paths and some open areas through this tall warm season grass on top of this ridge so that the turkeys will like to come out here and strut during the spring. Turkeys don't like to go into those fields that are all grown up, that CRP stuff, to strut. The hens like to use that stuff for nesting cover later in the year, which is why you want to make sure, if you're going to mow on your property, to do it early in the season like this, because if you wait till too late in the year, you could damage some of those hens' nests. So we're out here early April right now trying to get this stuff mowed off so that we're ready for turkey season next week, and we've got a good area for the toms to strut in. We just finished up mowing our hilltop here, and I actually cut some roadways down through some of this thick grass to the edge of the timber to provide access points for the birds to reach this high ridge out behind me. And I've actually set up in this spot in the past when we burned this field. I like to set up behind these old hay bales over here in this fence row and then put the decoys out on the highest point of the ridge so that most of the birds in the field can see them. But hopefully next week, when Iowa season opens up, these birds start using this field, I can get in here behind this hay bale and bring one in close for a shot.
In this segment, I'm going to be frost seeding this little small food plot here. This is about a 3/4 acre food plot, I'm guessing. It's not a full 1 acre plot. It's a spot that I've hunted in the past. It's a great spot. We've had some really tough conditions here these past 2 summers with droughts. So this plot sitting up on top of a hill in the timber has done really poorly. Anytime you've got trees around a small plot like this, the roots always go underneath the soil and they suck a lot of the moisture out that's down there. So that takes away from anything that subsoil moisture. And then if you don't get much rain, the plots sitting on these ridges just bake. Well, this one was planted during the summer last year, but nothing germinated and grew because, as you remember, it was so dry. I think we planted it on July 7th. If you look at it, this is what's in there. After 7-8 months, nothing grew. So I'm going to frost seed this, and some people might think it's a little bit late for frost seeding, but we do have some rain coming in the forecast for the next couple of days here. You know, unfortunately, it's beautiful today. We're finally hitting a really nice warm streak here of the spring, but we're supposed to be getting some rain on Sunday and some cooler temperatures. There's actually frost back in the forecast again. So I've got all the seed to soil contact with this bare dirt. So it's going to work really well for frost seeding. It's a little bit porous. The soil is a little bit porous and broken up from all the freezing and thawing during the spring and late winter. So it should work out really well. So don't be afraid to do a little bit more frost seeding now. I've got the Frigid Forage Pure Trophy Clover Blend, which is the one that we've been using on this farm for the past several years now. It does a real nice job frost seeding. It's got 2 red clovers and 2 whites in it. So it's a nice blend. So I'm going to go ahead and put a full acre's worth of seed on 3/4 of an acre. And that's because I'm frost seeding. If I was drilling it, I'd use the prescribed amount, but because of, like I said, you know, you're frost seeding, you're going to get a little bit less germination. I wanted to offer a couple more quick footnotes on this food plot. We created this, like I said, back last summer, and the process for doing that started with first spraying it. You always want to spray and get a good clean kill first. You don't want to try to seed into something or even till up a plot where the weeds that were there, the grasses, whatever, weren't killed first. So you spray it with Roundup. We'd give it just enough time for the weeds to start to die, you know, sometime around 10 days or so. Then we came back and tilled it. And sometimes you got to mow it first, depends on how tall the weeds are, because if you spray it and then it's really tall, you may have to mow it before you can till it, otherwise it'll start to clog up the tiller. But anyway, we tilled it, and then we actually drilled it. We did all of this using the wildlife and land management equipment that Cabela's has come out with this year. They actually started the product line last year, and we were one of the test areas for these products. We had a chance to preview them, but they're in the markets now. And you can find them, I think they're at 10 or 12 different retail stores, and you can go to the wildlife and land management segment of the Cabela's website and you can learn more about these products. But that's what we used to prepare this the first time, and like I said, it was just really droughty last summer and the stuff that we planted didn't grow. So we're back at it again now with the frost seeding. The next step after this is to come in and do the final treatment with either lime, fertilizer. Our soil test has not come back in yet. We sampled the soil here a week ago or so and sent it out. And I did that using the Frigid Forage test kit that you can buy through the frigidforage.com website. And it's all prepaid. You just put the soil sample into a little pouch and you drop it into the mailer and you send it off, and then the results come back to you from the lab. I know we're going to come up with the need for some lime, because I know we've tested some of these fields on these ridges back in the trees like this, and they always come back with a fairly low pH. So I think we're going to be adding lime, and to make that work this late into the year, you have to use the pelletized lime. If you're going to use the ag lime, like ground up limestone, you really need to put that on during the winter so it has a little bit of time to kind of work its way and leach its way into the soil. So we'll use the pellet lime, which is a real fast acting lime, and it's only good for 1 year basically, so it just buys you a little bit of time. It's not very expensive. I think with a fertilizer mix that I'll end up putting on here and the lime, will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $75 roughly, somewhere in that neighborhood, a little bit less than that possibly. So it's not real expensive, especially if you buy it over bigger areas. You know, like I've got other food plots too, so it's just, you know, once you factor it down to a small area like this, it doesn't cost a whole lot, but it's super important. Anyway, the point is you got to do the soil tests, and then you got to pay attention to what they recommend, otherwise you're not going to get your crop to grow. So I'm done here, and I'm done with this whole episode. Actually, we're going to do some turkey hunting The youth seasons are still on, and we're going to start rolling into the regular firearm seasons here pretty soon. But if you haven't been checking out the Spring Thunder episodes, if you're a turkey hunter, you'll want to check those out, the CabelaSpringThunder.com. We produce that here for Cabela's, and it's a pretty action-packed and exciting series. So that's it for today. I appreciate you joining me. We'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail. And remember to always dream big.